Hello and welcome back to the Sherwood Park Reviews. Today we are going to be diving into the Divergent series by Veronica Roth. I chose a series because they actually just put the movies that they took from this book back on Netflix. So I watched all those and then I realized that I've never read the books. So I decided that I had to, so I went back and read all three of the novels and we're going to talk about them today. So it starts off with the Divergent book, which is the first one in the series of three. It's a trilogy series written by Veronica Roth. She lives out of Chicago, Illinois, and that's where the book actually takes place, is in a dystopian Chicago civilization. So the city that they live in is divided into 5 factions, and what the factions are is basically how they've divided their society, where each faction represents a different virtue a person can have. So you have candor, which is honesty. You have, abnegation, which is selflessness. Dauntless, which is brave. Amity, which is kindness and peace. And then erudite, which is intelligence. So each 5 virtues that are kind of valued in their society, and they're divided up accordingly. So when you turn 16, that's when you get to choose which faction you're going to kind of dedicate your entire life to. Hi, and welcome to the Bookworm Reviews. This is our show where we go into depth about reviewing books that we hope our customers could definitely get into. We review books for everyone. We're here at the Bookworm. I'm Kailey Weisgerber, the host, and I work here with my mom, Leanne Weisgerber, the owner of the store. Come check us out off Wye Rd. You're going to live there and leave your family or stay with your family in your faction. You can switch between factions. Just because you grew up in one doesn't mean you can't go to a different one. And that's kind of how the book starts off, with the main character, Beatrice. She is off going to kind of choose which faction she wants to be a part of and kind of make the decision of, is she going to stay with her family or is she going to move on to a different faction, which is kind of a big deal when you do that. So of course when she makes her choice, that's kind of what dictates the whole book. So what they have is called simulations, where they can put you in a simulation to kind of test your fears, test which faction you fit into best. And so when she does those, she finds out that she's kind of a little bit more talented at them than the average person, which causes a little bit of conflict between obviously the leaders of the society and herself. So she goes through all these challenges and initiation into the faction that she's picked to stay in for the rest of her life. And that's where she also meets one of the other main characters throughout the series and the main love interest for her. The crazy thing about this series is that the author, Veronica Roth, actually started writing the series from Four's point of view and kind of writing it from his perspective before changing it and writing it in Beatrice's perspective for the Divergent series. So that's kind of a cool thing. But I have this email. Oh, sorry, we're not we're filming.
I'll trim that so you can just pick it up.
Okay, I'll just cut that out. So because she was actually going to write the series from Four's perspective, she later, after coming out with the trilogy, also came out with some books about Four and sort of his backstory and past. So this is the novella about Four himself and sort of his initiation into his chosen faction, etc. So this one's definitely fun to check out. It's a kind of nice little, if you really get into the series, you can kind of keep it going by reading Four's book as well. So that's the first book of the Divergent series. It also won a Goodreads Choice Awards, which is pretty cool, and was released in February 2012. The second book in the series is Insurgent, which was released May 2012. And this one picks off straight after Divergent. The author was originally going to kind of leave a gap in between, but decided against it. And so it picks up right where it leaves off in the first book, which is really nice. This one, again, just continues the story. now that the factions are sort of starting to crumble and break a little bit, society isn't really working the way it used to due to many different factors, we start to see the conflict that Beatrice and Four kind of go through as they have to fight through this new society that's being created. There's also some bonus material in the back, and of course during this dystopian time there's lots of conflicts and wars and violence that goes on, so you obviously will experience death if you are in this kind of situation, which Beatrice does experience some loss, people who were close to her passing around her. And the author actually adds some bonus material in the back, which she talks about kind of how she changed Beatrice's characteristics in the second book, because a person actually wrote a review saying how they've experienced someone close to them passing away, and how Beatrice in the first book didn't really kind of act the same way you would if someone close to you has passed away. She was kind of very, put off by it, not really affected by it the same way a person in real world would be. And so the author actually, for the second book, kind of added some more characteristics to Beatrice that would better fit someone who's lost someone close to them. And I never really noticed that and picked it up in the first book. It kind of just naturally went along, and I thought, yeah, it makes sense. And then reading this little blurb in the back that the author added from her own perspective, talking about how she added in these kind of PTSD characteristics to the character and other things that just kind of really tied into the book to make it more believable and relatable to someone who has lost someone and how they would react in that situation. A weekly event we do here at the store is Thrifty Thursday. Every Thursday we add new titles that would typically be $12 and reduce them down to $3, and there's always more to choose from for Thursday. So that's really nice that the author did go back and kind of change that to better accommodate for people who have experienced loss and make it a little bit more relatable. And finally, we have the third book in the Divergent series, Allegiant, which came out in 2013, so just a year after the first two books. And this one, it kind of is a little bit different. It strays off because the main characters travel outside of the city limits, which is a big deal. The society that they've lived in and created in Chicago with the factions has a wall enclosing it so that you can't leave and you can't come back. And so it's kind of this little, dystopian city to themselves. And so with the third book, they actually make the choice to adventure out of the city and go and see what's beyond the wall. The faction system has failed. There's much more violence, corruption, leaders taking over, and past leaders passing on, and so much going on. And so Tris and Four decide that they want to see what is outside of Chicago, what is left of this destroyed world. And that's where they find out some interesting stuff about, DNA and gene mapping. Before the Divergent series takes place, the reason that they set up Chicago is really comes down to genes, and they try to alter people's genetic makeup to make them more, find their valuable characteristics, which ended up damaging people and causing people to be honest, without empathy, etc. People who were really intelligent but didn't care about peace and wanted just absolute order, and so on and so forth. So they created these little societies such as Chicago to kind of reverse that and fix that. And we see that in this last book when they go on this adventure to try to find out what's happening and where did this all originate from and why is Chicago the way it is, and the conflicts that ensue with that. The other thing about Allegiant is it actually takes place in Tris's, Beatrice, and Four's perspective. So the two of them, it's both in their perspective, and it flips back and forth per chapter between Beatrice's point of view and Four's point of view, whereas the first two books are solely Beatrice's point of view. So that's pretty cool to read it like that. And yeah, so this is the Divergent series, and there is 3 movies that actually came out based off of these, and they were actually pretty accurate. The first one, the movie, I would say was pretty close to being accurate, which was kind of nice to watch, and the second one as well, pretty close to the actual story. I would have to say the books are of course better than the movies, but the movies did stay pretty accurate to the story. The third one, what ended up happening is they were going to make 2 movies, one part and the second part, and they never actually came out with the second part to the final movie, Allegiant. So the movies do kind of leave on a cliffhanger, But of course, if you read the books, you do get the final tie-in and see how everything actually pans out. So I love the books. I thought they were amazing. I can't believe it's taken me so long to read them, but I'm glad that I finally dived in and taken time to read them. They were amazing. So stay tuned. Come back next week. We will be reviewing The Beginning of Everything by Robin Schneider. He has a couple books, and this is the one that we're going to be reviewing for next week. As well, I will mention the Bookworm is doing a summer bingo game, so make sure you bring your kids down. You can do a full summer bingo game. The prizes are a $15 gift card to the store if you can complete the bingo game. So make sure you bring your kids and friends down and try that out for this summer. It's a great summer activity to get your kids into. And yeah, thank you so much for coming, and we'll see you next week.
Awesome. Okay, let's display each one of those books separately.
This is the Sherwood Park Bookworm. We're an independent, locally owned bookstore off of Wye Rd, behind the Smileys and next to the Park Mazda. We've been open for 34 years and have recently moved into the Wye Rd location 5 years ago. It is run by Weisgerber. We have a large selection of books, all the way from mystery and suspense, self-help, we have romance, westerns, classics, poetry, and so much more. And we pride ourselves on a wonderful young adult section and children's. We have gift cards that you can purchase for great gifts and so much more at the Bookworm. We would love for you to come and check us out.